All right, music fans, welcome back. It is I, Dave, the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people, just like you, right there, and me here. Bon Jovi, I actually don't want to talk about Bon Jovi, but I need to. What do I need to do here? I need to talk about how reinvention of your sound, of your image, of your persona, doesn't always work, okay? And I know there are legions of Bon Jovi fans out there who like this current version of Bon Jovi. The women, he's more handsome than he's ever been. He's sophisticated now. He's erudite. He writes all of these deep lyrics. He's trying to be Bruce Springsteen or whoever now. And I don't get it. I need to hear like something off of 7800 Fahrenheit, Slippery When Wet, debut album. I mean, that's Bon Jovi to me. Bon Jovi is not in my top 10 of anything. And again, I've made this argument too while we're on the topic that they're going to the Hall of Fame and Def Leppard's not going to the Hall of Fame. They're going to the Hall of Fame and Jethro Tull is not going to the Hall of Fame. I can go down this list. Kansas, not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You can just talk about this endlessly and say to yourself, well, why do these guys get in? Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about Eddie Trunk again. Eddie Trunk did this radio show where he talked about influence, okay? He talked that Bon Jovi influenced all of these 80s bands, all right? And he was the guy who did all of the theatrics and had, the stage persona and had kind of a pop metal thing going there. And everybody kind of followed suit. Dawkins just said, hey, you know what? We're going to try to sound like Bon Jovi. Even though all of these bands pretty much started at the same time. And you can look at other bands that actually got an earlier start on this whole thing. Bands like Twisted Sister and the aforementioned Dawkins, Vandenberg, you can go down a list, okay? Bon Jovi was there in the midst of them. And this idea that he, started this trend, he was able to transcend some of that, metal stigma by going a little softer, writing the power ballads and so forth. Doing these old West type songs like Dead or Alive and Blaze of Glory and so forth. Although Poison, again, had every rose has its... So it's kind of like, all right, they're moving right along. And if you look at every other band who's been around this long, they haven't had to... You know what? I get it. You want to be on the radio and you want to be on a major label. So you do all of this stuff to hit like the top 30 on some meaningless adult contemporary music chart, which it is. It's all meaningless. You get a few weeks in light rotation on a soft rock radio station that plays the hits of yesterday and today. Ooh, here's a new one from Bon Jovi. And all the women who grew up in the 80s are like, ooh, Bon Jovi! And it doesn't sound anything like Bon Jovi. Okay, someone sent me the new Bon Jovi song, and I listened to it. I could take like 2 minutes of it. And I'm saying, look, if I want Maroon 5, I'll go listen to Maroon 5. If I want some homogenized thing that with the sounds are all kind of like compressed together. And Bon Jovi, by the way, vocally speaking, sounds very different from what he used to sound like. And I get it. He's aged, but he's not ancient. I mean, Rick Springfield still sounds like Rick Springfield to me. When I hear his new stuff, I go, okay, yeah, that's Rick Springfield. And even though vastly different production values and doing the blues thing and all that, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. And I know the whole Richie Sambora thing. Richie left the band and Richie chose to not show up and Richie didn't want to work. And but that's Bon Jovi to me. You need Richie Sambora. You need John Bon Jovi. You need the 80s, early 90s. And that's the end of it. I know they've had they had a big hit like in the mid 2000s there, like around 2000, I want to say 3 or 4, which was all over the radio, and I can't even remember the name of it. But I said to myself, okay, that's not too bad. And John still sounded kind of like John. Now I don't recognize this, and I just think guys like Eddie Trunk who say, okay, this is a shift, and it's a good shift, and it's why he's in the Hall of Fame, and he's managed to reinvent himself. But yet bands that continue on the same course and don't reinvent themselves, those guys don't get into the Hall of Fame, because reinventing is more important than, say, sticking to your sound, sticking to what worked, sticking to what the true fans really want to hear. And you may say, well, he's got a new audience now. And that's probably true, because he doesn't have me, because I have no interest. And, when I fell off the turnip truck back in the early 90s, when I got back on, the bandwagon, or however I resurfaced, I didn't go looking for Bon Jovi, because there was a gap between albums, and the material was beginning to decline. When I was in radio, it wasn't as good as like Slippery When Wet and stuff like that. Just wasn't. I mean, New Jersey. I mean, listen to those albums. Those are beefy, great, hard rock, top 40 rock radio friendly albums, melodic rock, and it wasn't like this cool, sophisticated, I'm going to, wear the open collar now and my hair's, I mean, do I expect him to look, no, he's aged, I get it. But his voice sounds different, everything, the production values are all different. And I'm struggling with this idea that he should be in the Hall of Fame, and I'm struggling with this idea that reinvention makes you a better artist. I mean, I can cite people that have been, artists that have constantly tried to reinvent themselves on every album, and after a while, they don't have a core sound. And you can't recognize, they've got, and how do you play this material live? You got to go from this extreme sort of glam metal stuff to this, hey, I'm Train, or whatever band is out right now that's got sort of this homogenized, just boring, completely forgettable, pedantic sound, all right? So, not a fan. I guess overall I'm not a fan. I liked the earlier material. I don't know why I'm so fired up about this. It's just that I read online all of this stuff about, isn't it wonderful, isn't it great? And yeah, it would have been wonderful and great if you had made some music that kind of sounded like the stuff we all grew up on, because that's why, we listen to you in the first place. If you want to hang out with your new audience, the 20-somethings or whoever might glom onto this, that's fine. It's just kind of weird. And as a music fan and as somebody who's the real music observer, this doesn't sound like real music to me. It sounds plastic, it sounds fake, and it doesn't have any resemblance to the greatness that once was. All right, that's it for my video. I'm done. I know when I go off on these tangents, I probably get in trouble, but that's why you watch me. I will be back with more real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me, and we'll do it real soon. Talk to you then.